From the res life, big lessons for the world, dreaming big.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Willie Cheez Education channel. My name is Delmar, and I love to write stories and read them back to you. I want to inspire you to keep on learning through the power of storytelling. Through the adventures and stories of Willie Cheez, we explore personal development, Navajo culture, ceremonies, native histories, and life lessons, as well as business ideas and more. This will help you grow and connect with both tradition and modern life, and I'm excited to share with you on a new story called Willie Cheez and the Owl, A Tale of Fear and Salvation. Part 1, The Warnings of the Owl. Willie Cheez had always heard stories about the owl, stories that sent shivers down his spine. In Navajo culture, the owl was a powerful messenger, but not one that brought good news. The elders often spoke of the owl with a mix of fear and reverence, describing it as a harbinger of death or misfortune. If an owl crossed your path, it meant that something bad was coming, and it was wise to prepare for the worst. But there were other stories too, stories that hinted at a deeper, more complex relationship with the owl. Some believed that in times of desperate need, when all hope seemed lost, the owl could be called upon for help. It was said that if you asked the owl for protection, it might save your life, though such help came at a price. Willie had always taken these stories seriously, but he had never imagined he would find himself in a situation where he would need to call on the owl for help. That all changed one cold winter night. Part 2, The Snowstorm. It was late in the evening when Willie Cheez left town, heading back to his home on the reservation. The weather had been unpredictable that day, with sudden gusts of wind and snow flurries making the roads difficult to navigate. But Willie had grown up in this harsh landscape, and he was confident he could make it home before the storm worsened. As he drove through the winding roads, the snow began to fall more heavily, quickly covering the ground in a thick white blanket. The wind howled through the trees, and the temperature plummeted. Willie's truck struggled against the elements, the tires slipping on the icy roads. He knew he had to keep moving, but the storm was relentless, and soon the road ahead became impassable. Willie had no choice but to pull over and try to wait out the storm. He sat in his truck, shivering as the cold seeped in, the heater struggling to keep up. Hours passed, and the storm only grew stronger. The world outside was a swirling mass of white, and Willie could barely see a few feet in front of him. He tried to stay awake, but the exhaustion of the day, combined with the cold, made it hard to keep his eyes open. He knew he couldn't fall asleep in these conditions. It would be too easy to drift into a sleep he might never wake from. Finally, Willie realized he had to do something. The storm wasn't going to let up, and he couldn't stay in his truck any longer. He gathered what little warmth he could from his coat and hat, then stepped out into the freezing night. The wind cut through him like a knife, and the snow stung his face as he began to walk, hoping to find shelter. Part 3, The Encounter. Willie walked for what felt like hours, the cold biting into his bones. The world around him was silent, save for the howling wind, and the moonlight reflected off the snow, casting an eerie glow on the landscape. He had no sense of direction, only the instinct to keep moving. As the night wore on, Willie's strength began to fail him. His legs grew heavy, and his vision blurred. He knew he was in danger, that if he didn't find shelter soon, he wouldn't survive the night. But there was no shelter to be found, only endless snow and darkness. Finally, Willie couldn't go on any longer. He stumbled to a large tree, its branches offering a small reprieve from the wind. He sank to the ground, his body trembling with cold, and leaned against the tree, trying to keep his eyes open. But he was so tired, so cold, and the darkness was so inviting. As he sat there on the edge of consciousness, Willie heard a sound that made his blood run cold, the hoot of an owl echoing through the night. His heart raced as the stories of the owl flooded his mind. He knew what the owl's call meant, and he felt a wave of fear wash over him. But then something strange happened. The owl's call seemed to grow closer, louder, until it felt as if the bird was right above him. Willie looked up, his vision blurred by the snow and darkness, and he saw the silhouette of an owl perched on a branch, its eyes glowing in the moonlight. In that moment, Willie remembered the other stories he had heard, the ones that spoke of the owl as a protector, a last resort in times of desperate need. With no other options left, Willie did something he never thought he would do. He prayed to the owl, asking for its help. He whispered a prayer, his voice trembling with fear and exhaustion, and then he closed his eyes, surrendering to the cold and the darkness. Part 4. The Warmth of the Owl. Willie didn't know how long he slept, but when he awoke, he felt something warm around him, a sensation so strange and comforting that he thought he was dreaming. He opened his eyes slowly, expecting to see nothing but snow and darkness, but instead he felt a warmth that seemed to envelop his entire body, like a soft, warm blanket. He looked around, confused. He was still under the tree, the snow still falling gently around him, but the cold that had seeped into his bones was gone. He could move his fingers and toes, and his breath no longer felt labored. Willie didn't understand what had happened, but he felt a deep sense of gratitude. The owl's call was gone, the night was still, and the storm had begun to ease. He stood up slowly, his body still warm, and began to walk again. The cold returned as he moved, but the memory of that warmth stayed with him, giving him the strength to keep going. When Willie finally made it home, he collapsed in his bed, exhausted but alive. As he lay there, he thought about what had happened, about the owl's call, and the warmth he had felt. He knew that the owl was a messenger, often bringing warnings of danger or death, but he also knew that in his moment of need, the owl had saved his life. Part 5. The Legacy of the Owl. In the days that followed, Willie told his family about his encounter with the owl. His grandfather listened carefully, nodding as Willie described the warmth that had saved him from the cold. "The owl is a powerful spirit," his grandfather said, "and while it often brings messages of warning, it also has the power to protect. You were wise to ask for its help." Willie thought about the dual nature of the owl, both a harbinger of danger and a potential savior. He realized that the owl's power was not something to be feared blindly, but rather something to be respected and understood. The stories he had heard growing up were not just warnings. They were lessons in how to navigate the balance between fear and faith. As Willie continued to reflect on his experience, he felt a deeper connection to the stories of his ancestors. He understood now that the owl, like so many other symbols in Navajo culture, represented the complexities of life, the balance between light and dark, life and death, fear and hope. A lesson in respect and faith. Willie Cheez never forgot the night he encountered the owl, and the story became one he would share with others, just as the elders had shared their stories with him. He knew that the owl's message was one of both caution and possibility, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is always a path forward if you have the courage to ask for help. The encounter taught Willie a valuable lesson about the importance of respecting the forces beyond our understanding and having faith in the power of the spirits that watch over us. And as he shared his story with others, he hoped to pass on the wisdom he had gained, that even in the face of fear, there is always a way to find warmth, light, and life. For Willie Cheez, the owl was no longer just a messenger of doom. It was a reminder of the enduring power of faith, respect, and the ancient connections that bind the Navajo people to the world around them.
From the res life, big lessons for the world, dreaming big.